Okay, let's unpack this. Um, you might think you know everything about, well, the tooth fairy, right? That whole enchanting world. But have you ever stopped to think about their employment status? It sounds pretty whimsical, I know, but it actually opens up some incredibly relevant conversations.
It really does. What's fascinating here is how legal precedents, specifically from the modern gig economy, are now prompting a closer look. Even at the most, magical of professions, there's actually an article in the British Dental Journal about this.
Wow, okay, so a dental journal digging into fairy law.
Exactly. It's a surprising connection, but it really sheds light on these broader shifts in how work itself is being defined today.
Right, so our mission for this deep dive, then, is to sort of unearth these surprising legal and economic challenges, the ones facing this iconic figure, and maybe show how even these seemingly fanciful scenarios, well, they can eliminate bigger trends impacting our own world right now. So, to kick things off, for the longest time, tooth fairies have just been considered self-employed. Simple as that. But recently, that status, well, it's been called into pretty serious doubt.
Yeah, it's a big shift. It's causing quite a stir, not just in the magical realm, apparently, but definitely in legal circles, too.
So what triggered it? Was there a specific case?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, yeah. These legal rulings represent a significant reevaluation of how we classify labor. The catalyst, really, has been a series of landmark employment tribunal rulings back in the UK, against major players like Uber.
The gig economy cases.
Right. Exactly. And even traditional firms like Pimlico Plumbers. These cases have fundamentally redefined what self-employed truly means, often reclassifying roles as workers in certain contexts, even if the contracts explicitly said self-employed.
So the contract isn't the final word anymore.
Not necessarily. The core insight here is that the boundaries of employment are fundamentally shifting. It means traditional notions of independent work are being challenged across all sectors, really. It forces us to reconsider who's truly self-sufficient and who might deserve more protection.
Okay, and what's been the immediate sort of ripple effect for the tooth fairies themselves? Our sources are saying the British Tooth Fairy Association, the BTFA, they've actually put out a warning.
That's right. They've warned members that HMRC, that's Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, the UK tax authority.
Right, the tax man.
They're actively contacting individual tooth fairies now, scrutinizing their contracts. Do you imagine getting that letter through your fairy door?
Huh, no kidding.
Yeah.
So what was the old setup then? Why were they considered self-employed for so long?
Well, traditionally, the grounds were pretty clear. They weren't obliged to work fixed hours, for starters. They had freedom to set their own rates, per tooth. They use their own equipment, wands, pouches, whatever they need.
Their own tools of the trade.
Precisely. And, importantly, they had the flexibility to send a substitute. Like if one fairy was sick, another could cover their route.
The right of substitution. That's often a key factor in self-employment tests, isn't it?
It is. And under that classification, they paid Class 2 or Class 4 national insurance. The kind self-employed people pay, not Class 1, which is what employees pay through payroll deductions.
Right, but here's where it gets really interesting. This traditional setup is now crashing head-on with this newer understanding of work, right?
Exactly. This new worker status, if applied, it changes things fundamentally. It could mean tooth fairies, regardless of their old contracts, might be entitled to things like the national living wage and statutory sick pay, holiday pay, other benefits, too. It really raises that important question. What truly defines employment in today's, evolving workforce?
It feels like it comes down to control, doesn't it?
That's often the core of it. If a company, or maybe in this case, the BTFA, dictates how and when you do your tasks, even if you're labeled a contractor, are you truly independent? It's a redefinition, like we said, that impacts everyone from, a delivery driver to, apparently a tooth fairy.
Okay, so as if navigating these really complex legal shifts wasn't enough, our source is also revealing the tooth fairy profession is, battling some significant financial headwinds, too.
Yes, that's the other side of this coin, so to speak. The timing isn't great.
The data we've seen tells a pretty stark story. Tooth fairy payments, the amount left under the pillow, actually dropped by 11% in 2017. And that marked the second year in a row of falling values. Average payouts in the UK dropped to just £2.96 per tooth.
£2.96, that's quite a drop.
It is. It makes you wonder, are we seeing, inflation even hitting the magical realm? Or maybe deflation?
Well, a spokesperson from the BTFA directly addressed this. They said, and I quote, Falling tooth values reflect the worsening financial situation of tooth fairies in the UK. Now they added, our members simply can't afford to pay the going rate any longer.
So it's the fairies themselves who are struggling financially.
Apparently so. And this grim outlook, it's compounded by something else the BTFA reported earlier, a recruitment crisis. A significant number, something like 58% of their helpers, they call them dental imps, apparently were planning on leaving the profession entirely.
58%, that's huge. So you've got legal pressure, falling income, and a staffing shortage.
It paints a pretty tough picture for the profession, yes.
And what's the critical consequence for, the kids in all of this? If there's a shortage of fairies, does that mean some teeth just aren't getting collected?
That seems to be the implication. A shortage of fairies means some children's teeth are simply not being collected on time, or perhaps at all.
Oh, wow. Imagine that disappointment. You put your tooth under the pillow, full of expectation.
Exactly, and you wake up and it's still there, the magic didn't happen.
Yeah.
It really highlights how these big sort of macroeconomic and legal shifts can trickle right down, how they can affect even the most cherished personal little moments in our lives.
Yeah. It's a powerful illustration, isn't it, how these abstract definitions of employment and economic pressures directly influence, well, very tangible experiences.
Absolutely.
So this whole exploration has really pulled back the curtain, hasn't it, on this fascinating intersection of legal precedent, economic pressure, and, a touch of childhood magic. It's kind of a whimsical lens, maybe, but through which we can view some very, very real-world issues.
I think that's exactly right. Even in a context as, well, lighthearted as this seems on the surface, the underlying principles, labor rights, fair compensation, the actual definition of a worker, they're incredibly relevant. Relevant to our own economy, how we classify roles, from gig workers right through to traditional employees.
It really highlights the fluidity, doesn't it? How these definitions are changing and how vital it is to understand them.
Definitely. In a rapidly changing world of work, these questions are central.
Okay, so maybe this deep dive into the tooth fairies' employment status raises an important question for you listening right now. What other seemingly whimsical economies might be operating just under the radar, maybe vulnerable to these same real-world definitions of work and value and rights? Something to consider perhaps that next time you find a shiny coin under your pillow.